Mick Foley. Michael Francis Foley, born June 7, 1965, is an American author, actor, and former professional wrestler and color commentator. He is currently signed to WWE. Foley worked for many wrestling promotions, including the World Wrestling Federation, WWF, now WWE, World Championship Wrestling, WCW, Extreme Championship Wrestling, ECW, Total Nonstop Action Wrestling, TNA, and National Wrestling Alliance, NWA, as well as numerous promotions in Japan. He is widely regarded as one of the greatest wrestlers in the history of WWE, and participated in the main event of WrestleMania in 1999 and 2000, as a special guest referee in the former. He was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame class of 2013. Foley has wrestled under his real name and various personas. His main persona during his time in WCW and ECW was Cactus Jack, a bloodthirsty brawler who often wrestled with sharp and slash or solid objects, such as barbed wire, thumbtacks, or metal trash cans. When Foley got to the WWF, he developed the persona known as Mankind, a masked, mentally deranged loner who stuffed a smelly gym sock in his opponents' mouths and spent his spare time dwelling in boiler rooms, and later Foley debuted Dude Love, a relaxed, fun-loving, tie-dyed shirt-wearing hippie. These personas were known as the Three Faces of Foley, and Cactus Jack made his debut in the WWF in 1997. He is a 4-time world champion, 3 WWF championships and 1 TNA World Heavyweight Championship, an 11-time World Tag Team Champion, 8 WWF Tag Team Championships, 2 ECW World Tag Team Championships and 1 WCW World Tag Team Championship, a 1-time TNA Legends Champion, and the inaugural WWF Hardcore Champion. Foley's dedicated style of wrestling led him to often participate in violent and brutal matches that involved putting his body through a considerable physical toll and sometimes bleeding copiously, earning him the moniker the Hardcore Legend. Early life. Michael Francis Foley was born in Bloomington, Indiana, on June 7, 1965. He is of Irish descent, and has an older brother named John. Shortly after his birth, he moved with his family to the Long Island town of East Setauket, New York, where he attended Ward Melville High School. At school, he wrestled and played lacrosse, and was a classmate and wrestling teammate of actor Kevin James. While a student at State University of New York at Cortland, Foley hitchhiked to Madison Square Garden to see his favorite wrestler, Jimmy Snuka, in a steel cage match against Don Muraco. He has said that Snuka's flying body splash from the top of the cage inspired him to pursue a career in pro wrestling. He had a front row seat and is visible on the video of the event. Professional wrestling career. Training and early career, 1983-1991. Mick Foley formally trained at Dominic DeNucci's wrestling school in Freedom, Pennsylvania, driving several hours weekly from his college campus in Cortland, New York, and debuted in 1983. In addition to appearing on DeNucci's cards, Foley and several other students also took part in some squash matches as jobbers for WWF TV tapings of Primetime Wrestling and Superstars of Wrestling, where Foley wrestled under the names Jack Foley and Nick Foley. In one of these matches, the very first episode of Superstars, Foley and Leigh Thornton, another jobber, faced the British Bulldogs, during which the Dynamite Kid, who had a long-earned reputation as a stiff worker in the ring, clotheslined Foley with such force that he was unable to eat solid food for several weeks. During these squash matches, Foley also faced other top-level talent at the time, such as Hercules Hernandez. His run would not last long, as he had not signed a contract with the promotion at the time. During this run, he was also billed from different hometowns and at different weights. After several years of wrestling in the independent circuit, Foley began receiving offers from various regional promotions, including Bill Watts' Universal Wrestling Federation, UWF. He joined the Memphis-based Continental Wrestling Association, CWA, as Cactus Jack Manson, where he teamed with Gary Young as part of the Stud Stable. Cactus and Young briefly held the CWA tag titles in late 1988. On November 20, Foley left CWA for Texas-based World Class Championship Wrestling. In World Class Championship Wrestling, WCCW, Cactus Jack, billed as Cactus Jack Manson, was a major part of Skander Akbar's stable. The addition of Manson to Foley's name, due to its implied connection to Charles Manson, made him uncomfortable. Foley also won several titles, including the company's light heavyweight and tag team titles before leaving the company, losing his last match to Eric Embry in 9 seconds. He then briefly competed in Alabama's Continental Wrestling Federation before completing a brief stint with World Championship Wrestling. For much of his time there, he would team with jobbers. When the jobber would lose the match for the team, Cactus Jack would attack his partner, throw them out of the ring, and deliver his infamous ring apron flying elbow drop onto the concrete floor. His biggest match at the time was against Mil Mascaras at Clash of the Champions X, Texas Shootout. It was during this period that Foley was involved in a car accident that resulted in the loss of his 2 front teeth, adding to the distinctive look for which he is famous. Following the short stint with WCW, Foley then signed with Herb Abrams's Universal Wrestling Federation. In UWF, Foley teamed with Bob Orton to feud with Don Muraco, Sonny Beach, and Brian Blair. He soon left UWF for Tri-State Wrestling, a forerunner to Extreme Championship Wrestling, whose high-impact and violent wrestling style fit Foley well. On one night, known as Tri-State's Summer Sizzler 1991, Cactus Jack and Eddie Gilbert had 3 matches in one night. Cactus won a Falls Count Anywhere match, lost a stretcher match, and then fought to a double disqualification in a steel cage match. These matches caught the attention of World Championship Wrestling promoters, in large part due to widespread photo circulation. In 1991, after a brief stint working in the Global Wrestling Federation, Foley joined WCW full-time. World Championship Wrestling. Early years, 1991–1993. On September 5, 1991, Cactus Jack debuted as a heel and attacked Sting. After feuds with Van Hammer and Abdullah the Butcher, Cactus Jack faced Sting, then WCW World Heavyweight Champion, in a non-title Falls Count Anywhere match at Beach Blast in 1992, which Sting won. For a long time, Foley considered this the best match he ever worked. Unlike Jack's first stint in WCW, where his personality was quieter, he was now outwardly maniacal, laughing hysterically, shrieking into the air while choking his opponents and yelling his signature catchphrase "Bang Bang." After spending a year and a half with WCW as a heel, Cactus Jack transitioned into a fan favorite after engaging in a feud with Paul Orndorff, Harley Race, and Big Van Vader. Jack and Orndorff wrestled each other in a match for a spot on WCW World Heavyweight Champion Vader's team at a Clash of the Champions event. After the match, Race and Orndorff beat up Jack. At the following Clash of Champions event, Cactus Jack helped Sting's team win the match. He engaged in a feud with Orndorff, winning a Falls Count Anywhere match against Orndorff at Super Brawl 3. He then moved on to face Big Van Vader. Feud with Vader, 1993–1994. Cactus Jack wrestled Big Van Vader on April 6, 1993, winning by countout, but being severely beaten in the process. As a result, in the rematch with Vader on April 24, the two executed a dangerous spot to sell a storyline injury. Harley Race removed the protective mats at ringside and Vader powerbombed Cactus onto the exposed concrete floor, causing a legitimate concussion and causing Foley to temporarily lose sensation in his left foot. While Foley was away, WCW ran an angle where Cactus Jack's absence was explained with a farcical comedy storyline in which he went crazy, was institutionalized, escaped, and developed amnesia. Foley had wanted the injury storyline to be very serious and generate genuine sympathy for him before his return. The comedy vignettes that WCW produced instead were so bad that Foley jokes in Have a Nice Day that they were the brainchild of WCW executives who regarded a surefire money-making feud as a problem that needed to be solved. In one of WCW's most brutal matches of all time, Cactus faced Vader in a Texas death match at Halloween Havoc. Race won the match for Vader by using a stun gun on Cactus, knocking him out. The level of violence involved in this feud caused WCW to refuse to book Cactus Jack against Vader on a pay-per-view again. On March 16, 1994, during a WCW European tour, Foley and Big Van Vader had one of the most infamous matches in wrestling history in Munich, Germany. Foley began a hangman, a planned move where a wrestler's head is tangled between the top two ring ropes. Neither wrestler was aware that the ring ropes had been drawn extra tight before the event, and Foley was barely able to move. When Foley finally freed himself from the ropes and fell out of the ring, his ears were badly split at the back. When Foley re-entered the ring, the two wrestlers began trading blows. During this time, Vader reached up and grabbed Foley's ear, and ripped it off. The two men continued wrestling as the referee picked up the ear and gave it to the ring announcer. Vader claimed for years after that the ear had come off during the botched hangman maneuver. However, in a WWE Network video, Vader admits that after seeing footage that he had indeed removed Foley's ear. Cactus Jack and Kevin Sullivan were scheduled to win the tag team titles at Slamboree in 1994. Foley had to choose between reattaching his ear or wrestling in the pay-per-view and winning the titles. Foley chose to wrestle and won his only championship in WCW. Later on, Foley was frustrated by WCW's reluctance to work a storyline around losing his ear. WCW also shared a brief CO promotion with ECW during this time, in which Foley represented WCW on ECW television as the WCW Tag Team Champion, facing Sabu at Hostile City Showdown on June 24, 1994. During a promo, Foley spat on his tag team title belt and threw it to the ground to appeal to the hardcore fans who frowned upon the mainstream promotions. NWA Eastern/Extreme Championship Wrestling, 1994–1996. Cactus Jack's first appearance for the NWA-affiliated Eastern Championship Wrestling came on the May 31, 1994 episode, with Cactus revealed as Sabu's opponent for June 24 at the ECW Arena in Philadelphia. After being part of a talent exchange between ECW and WCW, Foley brought his WCW Tag Team title belt and spit on it for a recorded ECW TV segment. Foley continued with ECW, and began a feud with Sabu. Foley then began working the ECW Tag Team division on teams with Terry Funk, Mikey Whipwreck, and Kevin Sullivan. He had 2 ECW World Tag Team Championship reigns with Whipwreck while in ECW. After the stints in Smoky Mountain Wrestling and Japan noted below, Foley then returned to ECW to have a series of violent encounters with the Sandman, while challenging him and claiming that he had never been beaten in a Falls Count Anywhere match. He then started to team with Tommy Dreamer. According to Heyman, hardcore style differentiated Foley from other traditional wrestlers, so in ECW, Foley was right at home. After seeing a sign in the audience one night that said Kane Dewey, a reference to Foley's real-life son, Foley began a gimmick where he criticized hardcore wrestling and sought to renounce his status as a hardcore wrestling icon, and used a very technical, slow wrestling as a way to punish the audience. He said that he was on a mission to save his partner from making the mistake of trying to please bloodthirsty fans. The mismatched partnership lasted until August 5, 1995, when Cactus turned on Dreamer when they were teaming with the Pitbulls against Raven, Stevie Richards and the Dudley Brothers, Dudley Dudley and Big Dick Dudley. Cactus Jack DDT at his partner and joined Raven's nest, as he wished to serve Raven's higher purpose. He remained one of Raven's top henchmen for the remainder of his time in ECW. On August 28, Cactus beat the previously undefeated 911. As part of Foley's heel gimmick, he began praising WWF and WCW on ECW television, which angered ECW fans. Their anger intensified once word began to spread that Foley was leaving to join the WWF. In Have a Nice Day, Foley recounted an incident where he asked an ECW roadie to sell t-shirts for him at an event held in a Queens, New York venue where he had been popular even as a heel. the man came back after being spat upon numerous times by angry fans, who made him fear for his life. Even when he tried to give sincere goodbyes to the fans, Cactus Jack was met with chants of "You sold out" by the ECW fanbase everywhere he went. Cactus was booked to face WWF hater Shane Douglas, who won when he put Jack into a figure 4 leglock that allowed Mikey Whipwreck to hit him repeatedly with a steel chair. Foley's last ECW match was against Whipwreck on March 9, 1996, and he recounts that he was not looking forward to it due to the increasingly hostile reactions he got even when he wasn't in character. The ECW fans, who knew that this was Foley's last match, finally returned his affection. They cheered him throughout the match and chanted, "Please don't go." After the match, Foley told the audience that their reaction made everything worthwhile and made his exit by dancing with Stevie Richards and the Blue Mina to Frank Sinatra's song "New York, New York." Foley has said that this exit was his favorite moment in wrestling. Smoky Mountain Wrestling in Japan, 1994–1996. At the tail end of 1994, Foley joined Smoky Mountain Wrestling, SMW, as Cactus Jack, causing Boo Bradley to lose the SMW Beat the Champ Television Championship. He often teamed with Brian Lee to feud with Bradley and Chris Candido. Cactus Jack then began a crusade to rid Bradley of his valet Tamara Fytch. He ignited a feud between Candido and Bradley when he accused Candido of having sexual relations with Fytch. Ironically, Candido and Fytch were a couple in real life. Cactus Jack left SMW before the feud was resolved. In 1995, Foley went to Japan and wrestled in International Wrestling Association of Japan, IWA Japan, where he engaged in feuds with Terry Funk and Shoji Nakamaki. During his brief stint in Japan, Foley had the nickname Tsunami Stopper. Foley, however, soon returned to ECW to feud with the Sandman. Funk returned to team up with Sandman, and during a particularly violent spot, the pair hit Cactus with a kendo stick 46 times in a barbed wire rope match. Cactus Jack then defeated Funk at Hostile City Showdown 1995. Later, he fought Sandman for the ECW Championship. During the match, Cactus Jack knocked Sandman unconscious and was declared the winner. Referee Bill Alfonso, however, reversed his decision on the grounds that the title cannot change hands by knockout. Returning to the IWA, Cactus Jack began a feud with Leatherface, whom he had betrayed during a tag team match. Foley also continued to wrestle in independent circuits, winning championships on the Ozark Mountain and Steel City circuits. On August 20, 1995, IWA organized a King of the Death match tournament at their Kawasaki Dream event, which featured some of the bloodiest, most violent, and most brutal matches of Foley's career. Each level of the tournament featured a new and deadly gimmick. Cactus Jack's first round during the day was a barbed wire baseball bat, thumbtack death match, in which he defeated Terry Gordy. The second round was a barbed wire board, bed of nails match where Cactus Jack defeated Shoji Nakamaki. The final, at night against Terry Funk, was a barbed wire rope, barbed wire and C4 board, time bomb death match, which Cactus Jack won with help from Tiger Jeet Singh. After the match, both men were covered in blood, ravaged by flesh cuts from the wire and burned by the C4 explosions. Foley later said that he only received $300 for the entire night, but in 2010 he wrote that, "Looking back, that match in Hangzhou is probably the performance I'm proudest of." After the tournament, he teamed with Tracy Smothers for a quick run with the IWA Tag Team titles. World Wrestling Federation/WWF. Three Faces of Foley, 1996–1998. In 1996, Foley signed a contract with WWF and, this time, the WWF did not use Foley as enhancement talent. He was shown several designs for a new character, a man with a leather mask and chains. However, WWF decided that it was too dark and only left the mask. Foley arrived in the WWF in 1996 with a new gimmick and perhaps his most famous personality, Mankind, a mentally deranged schizophrenic who constantly squealed, even throughout his matches, shrieked "Mommy," spoke to a rat named George, enjoyed pain, physically abused himself, such as by pulling out his hair, wore a mask and lived in boiler rooms, hence, his specialty match, the Boiler Room Brawl. Mankind's finishing move was the mandible claw nerve hold, which involved sticking his fingers in his opponent's mouth. His catchphrase was "Have a nice day." On the April 1, 1996, episode of Monday Night Raw, the day after WrestleMania 12, Mankind debuted and defeated Bob Holly, quickly moving into a feud with The Undertaker. The two then began interfering in the others' matches until they were booked in the first ever Boiler Room Brawl, in which the goal was to escape the arena's boiler room and reach the ring to take the urn from Paul Bearer. The Undertaker appeared to have won, but Paul Bearer refused to hand him the urn, allowing Mankind to win, thus, for the time being, ending the relationship between Paul and The Undertaker. While Mankind was managed by Paul Bearer, he referred to him as Uncle Paul. Mankind then earned the number 1 contendership to face the then WWF champion Shawn Michaels at In Your House, Mind Games. Michaels won by disqualification via interference by Vader and The Undertaker. The Mankind and Undertaker rivalry continued with the first ever Buried Alive match at In Your House, Buried Alive. Undertaker won the match, but Paul Bearer, the Executioner, Mankind, and other heels attacked The Undertaker and buried him alive. Afterward, The Undertaker challenged Mankind to a match at Survivor Series, which The Undertaker won. The feud continued after another match at In Your House, Revenge of the Taker for the WWF World Heavyweight Championship, which Undertaker had won at WrestleMania 13. Undertaker won the match and Bearer took a leave of absence, continuing the feud. Jim Ross then began conducting a series of interviews with Mankind. During the interviews, Ross brought up the topic of Foley's home videos and the hippie-inspired character he played in them, Dude Love, as well as his tormented journey in wrestling. The interviews also had an effect on the fans, who began cheering Mankind, turning him into a face. Around this time, Stone Cold Steve Austin and Shawn Michaels won the WWF Tag Team Championships from Owen Hart and the British Bulldog, but Michaels was injured and could no longer compete. Mankind tried to replace him, but Austin said he wanted nothing to do with a freak and resigned himself to facing Hart and the Bulldog alone the next week. Halfway into the match, however, Foley debuted a new persona known as Dude Love, who helped Austin take the victory, becoming the new tag team champions. Austin and Foley vacated their tag team titles when Austin suffered a neck injury in a match at SummerSlam in Madison Square Garden. Dude Love feuded with Hunter Hearst Helmsley, as the two competed in a Falls Count Anywhere match. One of Foley's most memorable vignettes aired before the match began, in which Dude Love and Mankind discussed who should wrestle the upcoming match. Eventually, they decided that it should be Cactus Jack, and Foley's old character made his WWF debut. Cactus Jack won the match with a pile driver through a table. Shortly thereafter, ECW's Terry Funk joined the WWF as Chainsaw Charlie. At the 1998 Royal Rumble, Foley participated under 3 personas: Cactus Jack, Mankind, and Dude Love. Charlie and Jack defeated the New Age Outlaws at WrestleMania 14 in a dumpster match to win the tag team titles. The next night, however, Vince McMahon stripped them of the belts and scheduled a rematch in a steel cage, which the Outlaws won with help from their new allies, D-Generation X. On April 6, 1998, Foley turned heel when Cactus Jack explained the fans would not see him anymore because they did not appreciate him and only cared about Stone Cold Steve Austin. Vince McMahon explained to Austin the next week that he would face a mystery opponent at Unforgiven. That opponent turned out to be Dude Love, who won the match by disqualification, meaning that Austin retained the title. McMahon, displeased with the outcome, required Foley to prove he deserved another shot at Austin's title with a number 1 contendership match against his former partner, Terry Funk. The match was both the WWF's first ever hardcore match and the first time that Foley wrestled under his own name. Foley won, and after the match, a proud McMahon came out to Dude Love's music and presented Foley with the Dude Love costume. At Over the Edge, Dude Love took on Austin for the title. McMahon designated his subordinates Gerald Briscoe and Pat Patterson as the timekeeper and ring announcer, and made himself the special referee. The Undertaker, however, came to ringside to ensure McMahon called the match fairly, and with his presence, Dude Love lost the match and was fired by McMahon on the June 1st episode of Raw. On that same episode of Raw, Foley reverted to his Mankind character, who began wearing an untucked shirt with a loose necktie and resumed his feud with The Undertaker. At King of the Ring on June 28, the two performed in the third Hell in a Cell match, which became one of most notable matches in professional wrestling history. Foley received numerous injuries and took two dangerous and highly influential bumps. His character lost the match to conclude their storyline. WWF Champion, 1998-2000. Although conventional wisdom holds that the Hell in a Cell match was responsible for Foley's rise to main event status, live television crowds did not initially get behind Mankind because of the match. Following a couple months of teaming with Kane, who together won the WWF Tag Team Championship on two separate occasions, Foley decided that crowds might respond better if Mankind were more of a comedy character, and so he abandoned the tortured soul characteristics and became more of a goofy, broken-down oaf. He began the transition into this character following SummerSlam in 1998, after Kane turned on him and the two lost the Tag Team Championships. The following month, Foley began an angle with Vince McMahon, with Mankind trying to be a friend to the hated Mr. McMahon. On the October 5th episode of Raw, while McMahon was in a hospital nursing wounds suffered at the hands of The Undertaker and Kane, Mankind arrived to cheer him up. Having succeeded only in irritating McMahon, Mankind then took a sock off his foot to create a sock puppet named Mr. Socko. Intended to be a one-time joke, Socko became an overnight sensation. Mankind began putting the sock on his hand before applying his finisher, the mandible claw, stuffing a smelly sock in the mouths of opposing wrestlers. The sweat sock became massively popular with the fans, mainly because it was marketed, mostly by Jerry the King Lawler during the events, as being a dirty, smelly, sweaty, repulsive, and vile sock. McMahon manipulated Mankind, who saw the WWF owner as a father figure, into doing his bidding. McMahon created the Hardcore Championship and awarded it to Mankind, making him the first ever champion of the Hardcore division. Mankind was then pushed as the favorite to win the WWF Championship at Survivor Series, as McMahon appeared to be manipulating the tournament so that Mankind would win. He and The Rock both reached the finals, where McMahon turned on Mankind. As The Rock placed Mankind in the sharpshooter, McMahon ordered the timekeeper to ring the bell even though Mankind did not submit, a reference to the Montreal Screwjob from the year before. As a result of Survivor Series, Mankind officially turned face, while The Rock turned heel and the crown jewel in McMahon's new corporation faction. After weeks of trying to get his hands on McMahon's new faction, the corporation, Mankind received a title shot against The Rock at Rock Bottom, in Your House. Mankind won the match by shoving a stench-ridden sock down The Rock's gullet, but McMahon ruled that the title would not change hands because Mankind did not win by pinfall or submission. After several weeks of going after the corporation, Mankind defeated The Rock to win his first WWF Championship on December 29. The taped show was broadcast on January 4, 1999, so that is the date WWE recognizes as beginning the title run. Having title changes on broadcast television rather than pay-per-view was uncommon in professional wrestling, but because of the Monday Night Wars, TV ratings became more important. The rival WCW, attempting to take advantage of the fact that their show Monday Nitro aired live while Mankind's title victory was taped the week before, had announcer Tony Schiavone reveal the ending of the Mankind Rock match before it aired. He then added sarcastically, "That'll put a lot of butts in the seats." The move backfired for WCW, as Nielsen ratings showed that Raw won the ratings battle that night, despite the Hulk Hogan vs. Kevin Nash main event which led to the reformation of the New World Order. Foley said that the ratings indicate that large numbers of viewers switched from Nitro to Raw to see him win the title and took great personal pride from this. Mankind lost the WWF Championship to The Rock in an I Quit match at Royal Rumble, in what is regarded as one of the company's most brutal matches. During the match, Foley took several bumps, including no less than 11 unprotected chair shots to the head from The Rock. This match is featured in Barry Blaustein's documentary Beyond the Mat, which shows the impact the match had on Foley and his family at ringside. The match ended after Mankind lost consciousness, and The Rock's allies played a recording of Mankind saying "I quit" from an earlier interview. The match was also voted 1999's Match of the Year by the readers of Pro Wrestling Illustrated. Mankind won the title back in a rematch on Halftime Heat, which aired during halftime of Super Bowl XXXIII, in the WWF's first ever empty arena match on January 31. The two then competed in a last man standing match at St. Valentine's Day Massacre, which ended without a winner, meaning that Mankind retained the title. The next night, Mr. McMahon booked a ladder match for the championship, which The Rock won with help from The Big Show. Foley would go on to WrestleMania to defeat The Big Show and again at Backlash in a violent and brutal boiler room brawl, the first in the WWF since July 1996, a month later. Shortly after, Big Show would team with Mankind, Test, and Shamrock to take on the Corporation at Over the Edge. Later in the year, Foley and The Rock patched up their friendship and teamed up to form a comedy team called The Rock and Sock Connection, becoming one of the most popular teams during that time. The pair won the tag team titles on 3 occasions. Foley helped Raw achieve its highest ratings ever with a segment featuring himself, as Mankind, and The Rock. The "This Is Your Life" segment aired on September 27, 1999, and received an 8.4 rating. In August 1999, Foley returned after a 3-month absence recovering from knee surgery to resume his feud with Triple H, who had injured Foley's left knee with his sledgehammer. On an episode of Raw, Mankind drew with Triple H in a match for the #1 contender for the WWF Championship, which resulted in a triple threat match between Steve Austin, Triple H, and Mankind at SummerSlam for the title. Foley won the WWF Championship for the 3rd time at SummerSlam, pinning the reigning champion Austin. Mankind's win led to an enraged Triple H to assault Austin, justifying Austin's absence while he healed a knee injury. The next night on Raw, Triple H defeated Mankind to win his first WWF Championship. A feud then developed between Mankind and the McMahon-Helmsley regime, led by Triple H. This included Triple H defeating Mankind in another boiler room brawl on the September 23 edition of SmackDown. Mankind continued his feud with Triple H when he was supposed to have the last boiler room brawl match with Santa Claus. He ended up being attacked by 5 men dressed up as Santa Claus, including D-Generation X members Billy Gunn and Road Dogg. Mankind defeated all 5 of these Santa Clauses, until Triple H appeared as a 6th Santa Claus and brought down Mankind, escaping the boiler room and winning as Santa Claus. On the December 27, 1999 episode of Raw, Mick Foley and The Rock had a pink slip on a pole match, where whomever was first to grab the pink slip first stayed in WWF, with the loser having to leave, in which Foley lost. Foley then reverted to his Cactus Jack persona in January 2000 and faced Triple H for the WWF Championship at Royal Rumble in a street fight. Cactus used a 2x4 wrapped in barbed wire and thumbtacks, trademark weapons from his pre-WWF days, but Triple H won the match after delivering 2 pedigrees, the second onto a pile of tacks. This feud culminated with a rematch at No Way Out in a Hell in a Cell match, where Stipu